October of 1988, the Plaza Hotel, New York City. Inside the Oak Room, workers in coveralls move like burglars with permission, prying brass fixtures from mahogany walls that haven't changed in almost a century. The sound isn't dramatic. It's practical, metal against wood, tools turning, a tradition coming apart one screw at a time. This isn't renovation. Renovation keeps the spirit and changes the wiring. This is extraction. A man has just bought the most famous hotel in America, mostly with borrowed money, and he needs it to pay him back fast. The plaza isn't being refreshed. It's being converted into a machine that turns history into cash. Nobody dies in this room, but something does, because what's being removed isn't just decor. It's a memory system. It's the accumulated culture of a place that operated like a small city, held together by staff who stayed for decades and residents who lived here for generations. And once that culture goes, it doesn't come back, even if the chandeliers still sparkle. To understand how America's most beloved hotel became a battlefield for ego, debt, and real estate mathematics, we have to go back to the moment the plaza was just a vision, inside the mind of a man who wanted to build something the world had never seen. The plaza sits at Fifth Avenue and Central Park South, an address that doesn't merely locate you, it announces you. 18 stories of French Renaissance limestone facing the most valuable edge of Manhattan. Step through the revolving doors and you enter a world designed to make ordinary life feel far away. Marble floors that amplify footsteps, light from chandeliers that flatters even exhausted travelers. A lobby that doesn't just welcome you, it sizes you up. For more than a century, the plaza has been a symbol so recognizable it became a shortcut in film and television. When Hollywood needs wealth, it points its camera here. When it needs New York, it often starts here. The building isn't just a setting, it's a character America keeps recasting as itself. But the plaza's power was never only visual, it was social, operational, human. This wasn't just a hotel where people slept, it was a place where America's wealth performed for itself, and where power came to find other power. The plaza that exists today opened on October 1st, 1907. Its construction cost $12.5 million, a staggering sum for the era. It wasn't meant to compete. It was meant to dominate. The building was ambitious in ways that now seem routine, but then were revolutionary. Private bathrooms at a time when many hotels still shared facilities, telephones in every room, central heating, systems designed for speed and discretion. The plaza was the cutting edge wrapped in old-world grandeur, and the craftsmanship announced permanence, rare woods, imported marble, lavish plasterwork, and public rooms designed not simply for comfort, but for myth-making. The palm court stained glass ceiling turned afternoon tea into something approaching a ritual. The Oak Room and Oak Bar created spaces for serious men to conduct serious business, protected from the noise of the city, and for decades, protected from women as well. This building was constructed to outlast the people who built it, and it did. But numbers and materials still miss the point, because the plaza's true luxury wasn't the marble, it was continuity. For most hotels, guests arrive and leave. They are transactions. The plaza was different. It had permanent residents, not just long-term stays, lives. Wealthy widows who moved in after their husbands died, industrialists who took suites and never left, families who occupied the same rooms across generations, passing them down like inherited property. Children learned to walk in hallways designed for diplomats. Elderly residents died in rooms where they had spent decades. Staff watched entire family histories unfold like a long-running play. This created something rare in New York City, a community built on continuity instead of churn. The hotel functioned like a village. Doormen recognized residents by rhythm and posture before they saw faces. Elevator operators knew floors without asking. Concierges held a private encyclopedia of preferences, what you drank, where you liked to sit, who you avoided, what you never spoke about. This wasn't service. It was institutional memory, a living intelligence network, and it made the plaza more than an address. It made it a belonging. That's why a children's book like Eloise worked, because the fantasy of a child living inside the plaza's secret world wasn't fully fantasy. It captured something real. Behind the public grandeur, there were corridors and routines, relationships and rules, a private universe operating inside the famous shell. For decades, the plaza didn't just host history, it stored it. The plaza began with a dealmaker named Harry S. Black. Born in 1863 in Ontario, he came to the United States and rose through the construction world, not by laying bricks, but by financing the buildings that would define the modern city. Black understood something fundamental. The real money isn't in the structure. It's in controlling the land beneath it. By the early 1900s, he was powerful in New York real estate. He looked at the original Plaza Hotel, an adequate, unremarkable building, and saw a mismatch. Fifth Avenue was becoming America's most prestigious corridor. Central Park was no longer a project. It was a mature crown. The corner deserved a monument. Black assembled the financing and hired the architect Henry Janeway Hardenberg, the man behind the Dakota and the original Waldorf Astoria. Hardenberg knew how to build status into stone. He designed a French Renaissance chateau for Manhattan, limestone, towers, a green copper roof visible from the park and the avenues, architecture that didn't whisper wealth. It proclaimed it. Construction moved fast, steel rose, marble arrived, crystal fixtures multiplied. Public rooms were shaped like declarations. When the plaza opened in 1907, New York society treated it as an event. The hotel was booked before its doors even opened. Reservations formed waiting lists. Suites, meant for short stays, became year-round homes. Black had built a destination, a stage, a symbol, and like so many builders of monuments, Black didn't escape the fragility of fortune. When the world changed, when markets crashed, when debt came due, his empire collapsed. In 1930, Harry Black died by suicide. The plaza outlived him. It would outlive everyone. But survival isn't the same as being whole. Institutions don't usually die in one dramatic moment. They fade. They are optimized. Ownership changes began to come faster. Corporate management replaced old customs with standardized procedures. Efficiency increased. Character decreased. Individually, these decisions didn't look like vandalism. They looked like business, fewer staff positions, tighter budgets, a little less labor for a little more margin. But the plaza wasn't like a typical chain hotel. Its value wasn't only in rooms and rates. Its value was in a culture built across decades, service that functioned like choreography, relationships that functioned like glue. And when you cut staff, you don't just cut payroll, you cut memory. Then came the 1970s, New York City's crisis years. Tourism dropped, wealth fled to the suburbs, maintenance costs rose. The plaza, as a beautiful old building, became expensive in a way newer hotels weren't. Old systems demand constant care. Deferred maintenance doesn't announce itself immediately. It accumulates silently like rot behind wallpaper. By the 1980s, the plaza was still famous, but fame doesn't pay for plumbing. And on the ledger, the plaza began to look less like an institution and more like an underperforming asset sitting on the most valuable land imaginable. That's when the math appeared. 800 rooms on Fifth Avenue could become luxury condominiums. A hotel could become an investment vehicle. History could become inventory. Even landmark protections, won by preservationists, had limits. They could protect the palm court ceiling, the oak room's paneling, the grand ballroom's features. They could protect stone and wood. They could not protect culture. They could not protect staff. They could not protect community. You could preserve the body and still kill the soul. In 1988, the plaza went up for sale. The price floated above $400 million. Multiple buyers circled. Whoever bought it would acquire a piece of American mythology, along with landmark restrictions, expensive upkeep, and residents with legal protections. The plaza needed a steward. Instead, it got a speculator with a brand. Donald Trump purchased the plaza in March 1988. For $407.5 million, then the highest price paid for a single hotel property. The headlines treated it like a coronation. He held a press conference. He promised restoration. He promised greatness. He promised the world. But the deal's structure was the real story. Trump borrowed almost all of it, high-interest debt that demanded immediate returns. The plaza now had a clock ticking inside it. Every day the hotel didn't throw off enough cash. It wasn't merely underperforming. It was bleeding. Trump installed Ivana Trump as president. It was a media-friendly move, glamorous and theatrical, exactly the kind of story that made the plaza feel like the center of New York again. But inside the building, the strategy was simple. Cut costs, extract value, and find new revenue fast. And the fastest revenue wasn't hospitality. It was conversion. The changes came quickly. Staff positions were eliminated. Departments were consolidated. Longtime employees, people who had worked here for decades, were fired. And when those people left, they didn't just take their uniforms. They took the invisible machinery of the plaza with them, the ability to maintain standards through instinct, to solve problems before guests noticed, to keep the hotel feeling like a home for its residents. Service declined. Regular guests noticed immediately. First-timers still saw luxury. They didn't know what had been lost. But the people who did know, the people who remembered, felt something slipping away. Then came the deeper transformation. Trump pushed condominium conversions. A hotel works because rooms generate recurring revenue. Condos generate a massive one-time payout. If you're trying to service crushing debt, a one-time payout looks like salvation. So, floors became private property. Rooms that had hosted travelers for 80 years were turned into investments. The plaza began to invert. Less hotel, more real estate product. Permanent residents understood the threat instantly. If the building's purpose was becoming sellable units, residents weren't community, they were friction. Legal battles began. Complaints piled up. Relationships between ownership and tenants turned openly hostile. This wasn't a hotel with residents anymore. It was a contested zone. And all of it, staff cuts, condo conversions, pressure on tenants, had the same root cause: the debt. The plaza wasn't being run to be great. It was being run to pay interest. When you run a historic institution as a debt servicing machine, you don't preserve tradition, you liquidate it. By 1990, the plaza's finances were in trouble. The debt load was suffocating. Interest payments alone were enormous. No amount of cost cutting could make the math work. And the plaza wasn't the only Trump property under strain. Other ventures were also leveraged, also pressured, also wobbling under the same philosophy. Borrow big, buy a trophy, force the numbers to obey your story. But numbers don't obey stories. By 1992, the plaza could not keep up. Donald Trump surrendered control to creditors. The restructuring that followed told the truth that press conferences never did. The plaza, as purchased and financed, had failed. The building survived. Trump's brand association survived. Creditors absorbed losses. And the plaza, the living institution, came out smaller, weakened, and permanently altered. After Trump, ownership continued to rotate. International capital arrived. Professional hotel managers stabilized operations. Renovations addressed deferred maintenance. The plaza regained polish. But something had changed in a way no renovation could reverse. The condominium conversions remained. Room counts shrank. The plaza became, structurally and financially, less of a hotel and more of a luxury residential brand with a hotel attached. More owners came, more promises, more sales. The plaza became what global finance does best, a symbol traded among the wealthy. And through it all, landmark protections held the architectural bones in place. The palm court ceiling still filtered light like stained glass weather. The oak room's paneling survived. The grand ballroom remained capable of turning an event into a headline. The building stayed beautiful. But culture doesn't work like marble. It can't be preserved by law. It can't be reconstructed from a blueprint. It requires continuity, people staying long enough to become the place. And the plaza, for decades now, has belonged to a carousel. Walk into the plaza today, and you can still feel the original intention. The lobby still has the scale that makes people quiet down. The chandeliers still throw light that makes ordinary life feel distant. The palm court still serves afternoon tea beneath that famous ceiling. Guests still dress for it. They still photograph it. The ritual continues, more expensive now, more curated, more experience, but recognizable. For most visitors, it's enough. It's luxury. It's history. It's New York. But for those who remember what the plaza used to be, what made it singular, the feeling is more complicated. Because the plaza wasn't special only because it was beautiful. It was special because it was alive. A building can survive while an institution dies. A landmark can be protected while a culture is dismantled. You can preserve the stage and still lose the play. The plaza's story is a story about American heritage, what we can save and what we can't. We can landmark the limestone. We can protect the stained glass. We can fight to keep the oak on the walls. But we cannot legally mandate stewardship. We can't require an owner to love what they own. And we cannot preserve a living culture once it has been turned into a balance sheet problem. Harry Black built a great hotel, a place meant to endure. And it did, physically. But across decades of optimization, crisis, speculation, and debt, The plaza became something else. A luxury shell carrying a famous name, traded like an asset, polished like a product. The chandeliers still burn, the marble still gleams. Tourists still take photos on the same corner of Fifth Avenue. The plaza doesn't care who owns it, it just survives. More beautiful than the people who fight over it, more permanent than the fortunes made and lost inside its walls. And that, more than any celebrity guest, more than any movie scene, is the legacy of America's most famous hotel, a monument that outlived the dreamers and lost its soul in the process.